Hi everyone, this is daveac.blip.tv and this is my vblog 071 for Friday the 27th of November, wine at the end. The strapline for this one is odds and ends as we get back on track with a wine at the end of the line. And I want to say first of all thank you for feedback. I think it was Randa Thor who mentioned that the lighting looks a little bit different on the last vlog I did, and I think what's happened is that I've got these energy efficient lights here in the house. That could be my tech item. I've got these energy efficient bulbs, and what seems to happen is often when they're coming to the end of their life, they go suddenly brighter for a short while. And I've changed the light behind me. It seemed to be giving off a lot more light, and it gave this video a little bit of a washed out appearance on episode 70. So sorry about that. We've been in the wars a little bit these last 2 or 3 episodes as I was ill and then caught up. So hopefully, as I say, odds and ends this week, and then from next week hopefully we'll be back in the groove, as they say. Okay. Happy Thanksgiving to those people who do celebrate that, mainly of course in the United States of yesterday. Hope you had a lovely day, family gathering, and hopefully you will enjoy a nice long weekend now, because I believe a lot get the Friday off as well as having enjoyed the Thursday celebrations. So I hope you have a nice time. There's not really much podcasting news, although there is something in the offing, and that is that I'm hoping very shortly to do another Cultum Collective podcast. We've been promising it for a while, but I went to Who at the Fab Cafe 2 here in Manchester, and we never got round to actually putting up a studio recording of that. Tim T. Jury, Tim's Take On, has got his stuff up, and he's also got pictures up on his T. Jury TwitPic site. And in fact, I put a few pictures up from the Fab Cafe on my TwitPic, and I have to thank my son Matthew for that, because luckily he had his Apple iPhone with him, and he was able to post up pictures directly from the event. But more of that, look out for that, a studio show coming from the Cultum Collective, Torture ID 54821. And of course, this Sunday, the 29th of November, we're doing Who Pulls the Strings. We're doing about puppets and super marination, as I mentioned last week. So look out for that on Sunday. Oh, and one more little bit of news. This weekend it is in Chicago, Chicago TARDIS event, and I believe Kendi from Gallifreyan Embassy is off on his travels, and he's gone to that, and no doubt the Podshock, Doctor Who Podshock, will be reporting back from that. Oh, and there is, I told you it was odds and ends. There is one last thing from about Doctor Who, and that is that if you go to the Gallifreyan Embassy site, podshock.net, there's 1 or 2 little pieces of snippets about the Matt Smith era that's there. There's a picture of filming. I won't say what it is, but if you go to the front page, you'll see it. And then there is also another casting announcement of a young girl that will be appearing in one of the newer series stories. So there's actually quite a lot about it. It's very difficult, and we've talked about this before on the various podcasts, if you don't want to be spoiled. And there are 2 classes of spoilers. There's those people who just don't want to know anything until they see the episode, and I fully understand that. And then there are others that will, if they officially, they put a little clip out, a promo on the television, or it's an absolutely something that the BBC have announced as confirmed, then some people don't consider that to be a spoiler. They consider that to be a teaser. So you pays your money and you take your choice. Not really any tech this week, to tell you the truth, and I think we're all in, well, not all, but many of us in the same boat. I'm a bit skint, so I can't really be buying a new item to show each week. So the only little tech item I've got this week is something that I saw on the internet, and that is actually some For most of you, not very interesting news, but it is for me because my email reader, my mail client that I use is Thunderbird. And of course, that's a Mozilla application, as is Firefox. And where Firefox has had quite a number of updates recently, I think I'm up to Firefox 3.5.2 or something. And Mozilla hasn't had as many frequent updates, but apparently there's quite a big one coming up. Mozilla 3 is coming out of beta soon, and that is supposed to have quite a lot of functional extras. But I actually feel a little old school using an email client, because both my kids seem to not bother with them. They seem to do all their email online, you know, with things like Hotmail or Google Mail and so on. Oh, that's a little bit of tech news I'll mention in a moment. So I talk about trying to teach an old dog new tricks. But from my point of view, I always come from the point of before broadband, when you used to have to pay per minute for being online and you had a slow online. I used to use the mail client because you would log on, you would only download the headers, not the whole text, because of time and money and speed, and then you would download well, you could delete stuff, but only down certain things, and you used to write your emails offline. So you might write 4 or 5 responses, then you would log on and upload, and then log off. And maybe some of you longer term users of the internet are quite familiar with what I'm saying. But young people now seem to do it all within the client. It's a bit like people who do these downloads of files. I am now doing with this, the Blip TV. I found it's much faster now when I've recorded this and encoded it into the MOV format. That's the QuickTime format. It's quicker to now use the Blip FTP site. It uploads in about 35-40 minutes. So what I mean by that is if the episode is 20 minutes long, it takes about 40 to 45 minutes to upload it. But when I did it through the actual web page, it was taking an hour and a half to 2 hours, and sometimes the actual it was breaking off before it got to the end. Now, I wasn't going to go into all that detail, but really I haven't got much tech news, so that's why I'm talking about that. So you know, it does change the way people use the internet with things like that. But I'm still a little bit old school. I still use FTP. I still use a email client, and all that is to underline the fact that Thunderbird will have an update shortly. Right, let's talk about some of these science fiction. Now, I did say I was going to mention about the Merlin and Sarah Jane adventures this week. It's sort of an update to them. Well, because I've given you a little bit of Doctor Who news, I'm going to save the Sarah Jane adventures for next week, and that's for another reason. First of all, to give more people a chance to have seen them, and therefore if I do show a clip, it won't be that much of a spoiler. And secondly, it will be nearer to when the Cultum Collective is doing our Sarah Jane Adventures review early in December. So that's a reason for leaving that. But and the other reason is I can only really set up one DVD to show you at once. If I try and show you it on this machine that I'm doing the video with, what happens is, and you probably noticed this last week, and I apologise again for it, my picture on the webcam sort of freezes up as my computer's trying to do 2 things. Because unfortunately I do not have a duo processor. It's a single processor. It's a fast one, 3.3 gig one, but it's only a single processor. It's not dual core or anything. Okay, enough rambling from me, David. I'm going to show you a little clip from one of the earlier episodes of Merlin, and I've forgotten the absolute name of it. I should have written that down. But it's one where a witch finder comes. What happens right at the beginning is Merlin is just out of the castle for once, and is at this campfire, and the smoke's coming up, and he feels playful, and he conjures up the smoke into like a stallion or a horse shape. But because his father, Uther Pendragon, has said any hint of witchcraft has to be reported to him, and they're beginning a reward. This woman tells them in the castle that she's seen witchcraft. She didn't see who did it because the smoke is up in the sky. So Uther sends for this witch finder general.
What were you thinking?
I wasn't thinking.
Well, think, boy, think.
It was just a bit of fun.
It was magic and it was seen.
You're right, I'm sorry.
You must hide the book. Anything that can connect you to sorcery in any way.
What now?
Yes, now.
I am expected.
It's not him. What's that cage for? I can hardly press the lever button.
I need a faster PC, there's no doubt about it. Anyway, I'm going to stop there, but you saw the Witchfinder General come in there, and of course it's Charles Dance playing that part. You know, very professional, these things, aren't they? Very professionally done. Thank you. Well, you're welcome. Okay, one more science fiction-y little story, and then we're going to go to the last couple of sections. Here in the UK, a new science fiction show went on this week. I think it was on Wednesday, and it was called Paradox. Now, I'll mention a little bit more of this once it's got underway, but basically it's something, and I talked about this with James and Lewis on the latest Hitchhiker's Guide to British Sci-Fi. It seems to be a little bit like a British show called Crime Traveller. Basically what it is, it's this scientist who's working monitoring the sun for sunspots and mass chromal ejections, that he receives a transmission that appears to come from about 18 hours in the future, and it seems to show a disaster. He calls in the police, but he's very enigmatic, so the police, when they come in, assume that he possibly could be the suspect. It might be him that's going to perpetrate this crime. So they set up the investigation not in the police station but in his lab, so they can keep an eye on him, and then they try to pursue it. So I won't tell you what happens, but basically that's the premise. There's a scientist who seems to be uncooperative with the police, and then the police lady is played by Tasmin Ulthwaite, who is known in UK for being on British soaps and so on. So it started off a bit pedestrian to my mind. It wasn't that good. It seemed a little bit of a well-trod path. But I must admit, the second half of it did get better. Now, I was watching it on BBC High Definition, and I don't want to bang my drum too many times. I'm starting to sound like the master with the drums, the constant drumming of the drums. But the picture was quite soft again, and really it just looked like DVD quality. It did not look high def. They seem to be soft focusing things slightly to help the codecs cope. And the story behind that is that they're trying to run the channel on lower and lower bit rates. Okay, so I will come back to Paradox, and it reminded me a little bit about the film Frequency, which is one of my favourite science fiction films, because it's the sunspots in Frequency that allow talking through radios over a period of about 30 years. So certainly worth checking out, and I will tune in to watch the next one. Okay, told you, bits and bobs. He's all over the place, isn't it? All over the place. No music today. I did Handel's Water music last week, but I did say I'd talk a little bit more about the books. In actual fact, Tim left me 3 books, but it was these fantasy and science fiction books that particularly caught my interest, because I used to collect these in the 60s, and I said I lost my collection. So I must really start looking out for some more of these, and they are a selection of short stories, and there's also sometimes a little sciencey items, and they're really high quality writers. I mean, you only have to look at some of the names on there: James Bliss, Isaac Asimov, and on this one, look, Jack Vance, Ray Bradbury. So, I mean, you know, people, science fiction writers cut their teeth on magazines like this. And I'm going to I've got a story here that's so short I think I can read the whole story. So here we go. It's called Unfinished Story. And it's by Larry Niven of Ringworld fame. As he left the blazing summer heat outside the Warlock's cave, the visiting sorcerer sighed with pleasure. Warlock, how can you keep the place so cool? The mana in this region has decreased to a point where magic is nearly impossible. The Warlock smiled, and so did the unnoticeable young man who was sorting the Warlock's parchments in a corner of the cave. The Warlock said, I used a very small demon, Haslas. He was generated by a simple, trivial spell. His intelligence is low, unfortunately, for his task is a dull one. He sits at the entrance of this cave and prevents the fast-moving particles of air from entering and the slow-moving molecules from leaving. The rest he lets pass. Thus, the cave remains cool. That's marvellous, Warlock. I suppose the process can be reversed in winter. Of course. Ingenious. Oh, I didn't think of it, the Warlock said hastily. Have you met my clerk? It was his idea. The Warlock raised his voice. Oh, Maxwell. Yeah, I'm sure the scientists know who I'm referred to with the name Maxwell. So, that's great, and I shall be seeking out more of those. Thank you again, Tim. And I'm going to end now. Yes, you waited long enough. We're going to have the wine. Now, I've poured it out, per usual. I pour it out early to let it breathe a little bit. Wow, it's a deep, dark purple. And I'm getting through, but I'm getting quite a bit of earthiness off that. Now, let's have a look what the bottle is. Let's get that, give a chance to focus. I have to move my head out of the way and it focuses. Right, Grafigna, I think you pronounce that. Shiraz Cabernet Sauvignon, 13.5%. It's not focusing very well, is it? 2008. Ah, there we are, focused nicely. And it's from San Juan, Argentina. So, there we go. Let's have another smell. We're getting a little bit of fruit, but I'm getting more of a sort of an earthiness off it. Ooh. I'm getting fruit like the usual blackcurrant fruit, but I'm getting almost that licoricey taste that I sometimes get. A bit of spice, not really a lot of, sort of slight peppery spice, but not a lot. And very, very little oakiness, very little. It's a little bit, it's not a very warm day here, so it's a little bit cool, this wine. It really has not had long enough to breathe. So what do I think? Now we're getting a little bit of the tannins coming through. It's not particularly long finish and not a strong finish. It's sort of, let me have another taste. It's got a little bit of a, it's not very well integrated. It's almost like a wine with two tastes. You get the fruit, and then you get the sort of tannins. Now, this is not very scientific, I know, but it doesn't seem linked. It's not integrated. It's sort of one taste, and then a slightly bitter aftertaste. Not not unpleasantly bitter, but no. It's like if you were talking about music, you could say it's got a high end and a bottom end, but there's no mid range. That's what this wine's missing. It's missing a mid range. Never said that about wine before. Perhaps that will just air up a bit. It is a little bit cold, so I might not be giving it a fair shake. Probably, not really. Certainly not recommended to any high degree. I will drink it, and it's reasonably enjoyable, but nothing to. I wouldn't recommend it. It's a mid-price wine, about £5, I think it was. What's that? €6, $8. No, not too taken with that. Okay, I've whittled on long enough. This is daveac for vblog 071 saying catch you next week, and hopefully we've caught up now and we'll be back. We'll be on song. Oh, it'll be a brilliant show next week. You must come back next week. And don't forget, Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TalkShow ID 54821. Who pulls the strings? We're talking about things like Thunderbird, Stingray, and Super Marination. Catch us then, and look out also for a studio show of the Cultum Collective, where I'll give a report on Who at the Fab Cafe 2. And with that, cheers all, bye.